Best book summary from a philosopher's notes. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. When you begin to think and grow rich, you will observe that riches begin with a state of mind, with definiteness of purpose, with little or no hard work. You, and every other person, ought to be interested in knowing how to acquire that state of mind which will attract riches. Observe very closely. As soon as you master the principles of this philosophy and begin to follow the instructions for applying those principles, your financial status will begin to improve and everything you touch will begin to transmute itself into an asset for your benefit. Impossible? Not at all. Napoleon Hill from Think and Grow Rich. Described as the best-selling success book of all time, Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich was originally published in 1937. The classic has sold over 15 million copies, is known as the granddaddy of all motivational literature, and has influenced nearly every great modern self-development teacher, including Esther and Jerry Hicks. Jerry says he's read the book hundreds of times and used it as the Bible for his businesses for decades. Of course, when Hill refers to riches, he's speaking of wealth in the broadest sense, material, emotional, spiritual, and all that jazz. This is one of the more challenging books to profile because there are so many big ideas. So, let's get to play. Impossible. One of the main weaknesses of mankind is the average man's familiarity with the word impossible. He knows all the rules which will not work. He knows all the things which cannot be done. This book was written for those who seek the rules which have made others successful and are willing to stake everything on those rules. Ah, impossible. What a word. You use it often? Please say, no. And, I love the idea of staking everything on your ideals. Hill kicks off the book with a story of a guy named Edwin C. Barnes who thought himself into partnership with Thomas Edison. Cool story. Edison could sense something about Barnes' clear, unyielding purpose and had this to say: I had learned, from years of experience with men, that when a man really desires a thing so deeply that he is willing to stake his entire future on a single turn of the wheel in order to get it, he is sure to win. How about you? Do you have a burning desire for something in your life on which you'd be willing to stake your entire future? Rule 1 of thinking and growing rich: definiteness of purpose. You've got to know what you want. So, what do you want? What is your definite major purpose in life? Strong recommendation you write that down now. Once you get that, it's time to get tantric and burn the ships. A long while ago, a great warrior faced a situation which made it necessary for him to make a decision which ensured his success on the battlefield. He was about to send his armies against a powerful foe whose men outnumbered his own. He loaded his soldiers into boats, sailed to the enemy's country, unloaded soldiers and equipment, then gave the order to burn the ships that had carried them. Addressing the men before the first battle, he said, "You see the boats going up in smoke. That means that we cannot leave these shores unless we win. We now have no choice, we win or we perish." They won. Every person who wins in any undertaking must be willing to burn his ships and cut all sources of retreat. Only by so doing can one be sure of maintaining that state of mind known as a burning desire to win, essential to success. Wow. Love that. Puts things in perspective, eh? Now, you may be thinking to yourself, that's a little extreme. And, well, yep. You're right. It's extreme. That's the whole point. Weak desire will get weak results. Intense desire will get intense results. Of course, in the process of learning to manage that kind of intense flame of desire, we often burn ourselves up and burn up those around us. That's part of the deal. When that happens, and it will, you have two choices: read the Gita, learn to meditate, renounce all desires, and strive to be like your guru who's dead from the neck down and just kinda smiles and bobs his head, or learn to manage the intensity. And, of course, while managing your intense desires we can, and should, still do stuff like meditate, read the Gita and all that, but then we learn to make a distinction between no desires and attachment to desires, but that's another discussion. Ken Wilbur and John Elliott come to mind here. First, Elliott, a leading expert on overachievement who wrote a book by the same name, see notes. He's also the descendant of a bunch of Harvard presidents and the great T.S. Eliot, who said, "Only those who risk going too far can possibly find out how far one can go." In his great book, Elliott likens the idea of trying to turn your desire stress down to a race car driver swapping out his V12 engine for a V4 because it rides smoother. Well, sure, it rides smoother. But it definitely isn't going to win any races. Of course, if your ultimate goal is to serenely watch life pass by, then a V4, or just not driving at all, really, would be a good bet. If, however, your ultimate goal is full and complete expression of your divine gifts in the greatest service to the world, then keep the V12 and learn how to handle it. Now Ken Wilbur. He has a phenomenal passage in One Taste where he's addressing this same issue from the perspective of transcending one's ego. He makes the super important distinction that as we transcend our egos, we need to make sure we don't exclude them. We need to go beyond a merely egoic sense of self, but not get rid of the individualized expression of God that makes us who we are. Wilbur talks about the fact that the great sages we admire were intense. Imagine Jesus walking into a temple with a bullwhip, gives me goosebumps, and then tell me he wasn't an intense dude. He offers this in his remarkable prose. The great yogis, saints, and sages accomplished so much precisely because they were not timid little toadies, but great big egos, plugged into the dynamic ground and goal of the cosmos itself. Plugged into their own higher self, they opened their mouths and the world trembled, fell to its knees, and confronted its radiant God. There is certainly a type of truth to the notion of transcending ego. It doesn't mean destroy the ego, it means plug it into something bigger. Put bluntly, the ego is not an obstruction to spirit, but a radiant manifestation of spirit. The integral sage, the non-dual sage, is here to show us otherwise. Known generally as tantric, these sages insist on transcending life by living it. They insist on finding release by engagement, finding nirvana in the midst of samsara, finding total liberation by complete immersion. From One Taste, November 17. Wow. So, you want to get rich? Burn your ships. Plug into source and shine. Thoughts are things. When Henley wrote the prophetic lines, "I am the master of my fate, I am the captain of my soul," he should have informed us that we are the masters of our fate, the captains of our souls, because we have the power to control our thoughts. He should have told us that our brains become magnetized with the dominating thoughts which we hold in our minds, and, by means with which no man is familiar, these magnets attract to us the forces, the people, the circumstances of life which harmonize with the nature of our dominating thoughts. He should have told us that, before we can accumulate riches in great abundance, we must magnetize our minds with intense desire for riches, that we must become money consciouses until the desire for money drives us to create definite plans for acquiring it. Brilliant. Every great teacher tells us how important it is to control your mind. Something powerful happens when we lock our minds on an idea, good or bad, BTW. Thoreau, if one advances confidently in the direction of his dreams and endeavors to live the life which he has imagined, he will meet with success unexpected in common hours. He will put some things behind, will pass an invisible boundary, new, universal, and more liberal laws will begin to establish themselves around and within him. Or old laws will be expanded and interpreted in his favor in a more liberal sense, and he will live with license of a higher order of beings. W.H. Murray, until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness concerning all acts of initiative and creation. There is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans, that the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from the decision raising in one's favor, all manner of unforeseen events, meetings and material assistance which no one could have dreamed would have come their way. I have learned a deep respect for one of Goethe's couplets. Whatever you can do or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius, power and magic in it. Begin it now. Paulo Coelho, see notes. When you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it. So, how about you? What are your dominant, magnetic, thoughts? Set your major definite purpose. Go for your biggest dreams. And pass through an invisible barrier, move with providence and watch the universe conspire for your success. Faith and dominant thoughts. Every man is what he is because of the dominating thoughts which he permits to occupy his mind. Again, what thoughts do you allow to dominate your consciousness? As Hill says, it is essential for you to encourage the positive emotions as dominating forces of your mind and discourage and eliminate negative emotions. Every great teacher echoes this sentiment. Self-confidence formula. First, I know that I have the ability to achieve the object of my definite purpose in life. Therefore, I demand of myself persistent, continuous action toward its attainment, and I here and now promise to render such action. Second, I realize the dominating thoughts of my mind will eventually reproduce themselves in outward, physical action and gradually transform themselves into physical reality. Therefore, I will concentrate my thoughts for 30 minutes daily upon the task of thinking of the person I intend to become, thereby creating in my mind a clear mental picture. Brilliant. Let's be clear by recognizing the fact that before the first in this self-confidence formula, you must know your major definite purpose. Did you fill your major definite purpose in above? If yes, sweet. If not, what are you waiting for? Even if you don't have 100% clarity, write something, anything down and churn the idea until it really has deep resonance for you that can stoke your fire of burning desire. In fact, perhaps the most powerful purpose you can have at that stage is to figure out what your definite purpose is. That is a huge step forward. Get a burning desire to really figure out what you're here to do. Refuse to see failure as an option and take consistent action toward your objective and voila. You'll be pleasantly surprised at the results. Okay. So, you have your definite purpose. Now, demand of yourself persistent, continuous action toward its attainment and promise to take such action. And, knowing that your dominant thoughts will manifest in your reality, why not spend 30 minutes imagining your ideal self? Super powerful way to rock your confidence. Also, you might dig Kelly Howell's 30-minute guided meditation called Destiny. Check it out at brainsync.com. I've done it 125 plus times in the last several months and love it. First plan fail? Try another. If the first plan which you adopt does not work successfully, replace it with a new plan. If this new plan fails to work, replace it in turn with still another, and so on, until you find a plan which does work. Right here is the point at which the majority of men meet with failure because of their lack of persistence in creating new plans to take the place of those which fail. Wow. I love that. So, once you have your purpose lined up, see that thoughts are things, and know how important your faith is, Hill gets into the importance of organized planning. Of course, if you want to make God laugh, tell her your plans. If you want to laugh with God, however, just keep on trying new plan after new plan, never allowing the seed of doubt to take root as you remember Winston Churchill's wisdom. Success is going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. The 31 major causes of failure. Success requires no explanations. Failure permits no alibis. Hill has a bunch of sweet lists, from the causes of failure to the causes of fear and others. How about a few of the major causes of failure? 1. Lack of a well-defined purpose in life. 2. Lack of ambition to aim above mediocrity. 3. Lack of self-discipline. 4. Lack of concentration of effort. 5. Lack of enthusiasm. 6. Inability to cooperate with others. How do you stack up, and how can you grow in these areas? Power of the mastermind. Men take on the nature and the habits and the power of thought of those with whom they associate in a spirit of sympathy and harmony. Tony Robbins, see notes, shares the wisdom of his mentor, Jim Rohn, in an even more powerful way. He says, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Think about that. Write down a list of the 5 people you spend the most time with and do the math. If you consistently hang out with people who are less inspired than you, you'll be pulled down. Consistently hang out with people more inspired than you and you'll go up. Powerful stuff. So, get your average up. Ahem. And remember this as you wisely choose your company. Without doubt, the most common weakness of all human beings is the habit of leaving their minds open to the negative influence of other people. On a personal note, as I write this on my sabbatical in Bali, 3 of my closest friends right now are God, my highest self, and the great teachers. I hang out with God every morning for an hour, when I wake up with the sun, and do my meditation. I chillax with my highest self when I'm journaling, and with the great teachers throughout the day as I read, study, contemplate, write. Plus, I once took a year off of dating and would go to Starbucks on Saturday night and pretend like I was hanging out with a best friend as I read Nietzsche and Rand and Rumi. Fun. Persistence. The majority of people are ready to throw their aims and purposes overboard and give up at the first sign of opposition or misfortune. A few carry on despite all opposition until they attain their goal. There may be no heroic connotation to the word persistence, but the quality is to the character of man what carbon is to steel. Now, I'm not a steel authority, but last time I checked, if you removed carbon from steel, well, you wouldn't have the steel. Same with persistence. You remove persistence from your character and you've lost any and all hope of living with material, spiritual, emotional riches. Period. And, know this, according to Hill, the ease with which lack of persistence may be conquered will depend entirely upon the intensity of one's desire. You may want to reread that. Lacking persistence? That's entirely BS. Your desire is weak. You want to increase the persistence, start by getting a burning desire. Hill continues, the starting point of all achievement is desire. Keep this constantly in mind. Weak desires bring weak results, just as a small amount of fire makes a small amount of heat. If you find yourself lacking in persistence, this weakness may be removed by building a stronger fire under your desires. Just do it, Napoleon Hill style. Tell the world what you intend to do, but first show it. As Hill says, deeds, and not words, are what count most. Echoes Emerson's genius, what you do speaks so loudly that I cannot hear what you say. So, you have a lot of exciting plans, visions, etc. Awesome. Now rock it.